NASA has published a new study confirming once again that global warming is 100% truth, and there's no need to debate the cold, hard facts. The latest study, published by James Hansen, considered to be the godfather of global warming, says the recent spike in extreme temperatures is due to climate change, and that the chances of it happening regularly are much greater than compared to the 1950s through the 1980s. Of course, it wouldn't be global warming without a misleading data and skewed numbers. The number of daily heat records set during the 4-decade period was substantially lower than the 1930s. In fact, temperatures are much cooler today than they were during the 30s, in spite of the drought and extreme heat. I think the only hot air we should be concerned about are the emissions coming from global warming alarmists. For more, let's go to Tom Harris with the International Climate Science Coalition. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, hi, Lauren.
So, please explain a little bit the NASA study that's been getting a lot of coverage for the last 2 or 3 days, and Hansen's piece in the Washington Post.
Okay, well, the funniest thing is he says, I now see that I was right in my forecasts of temperature. Okay, back in 1988, he appeared before a stage-managed hearing in front of a Senate committee, and he talked about certain temperature rises that would occur over the next couple of decades. Well, if you actually plot those temperature rises versus what really happened, you find that Hansen is 150% wrong, even though he only assumed that CO2 would rise at a 1.5% rate. In fact, CO2 since 2000 has risen faster than that. It's risen at 2.5%, and yet even still, our temperatures are way below what he forecasts. So he's dead wrong on his forecasts, even though he's saying he's right.
Okay, so let's get this right. Since about 2000, the atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide have been going up about 2.5% a year.
That's
but
right.
Temperatures haven't gone anywhere near as high as Hansen and the others at the UN and the others in the alarmist community have predicted. So are they worried about this? Have you seen any indication that they're doing anything more than revising their original predictions to show that they're still right?
Well, Hansen, of course, he's a temperature man, so he's focused. He's got to show the temperature's rising. I mean, God, how can you have global warming without rising temperature? But since 2003, of course, temperature is essentially stabilized. You get ups and downs and things like that, but it hasn't done anything since 2003. That's almost a decade. So Hansen's, he's having to play with the numbers to try and make it look like global warming. The rest of the global warming fraternity have switched topics. They say, oh, well, we're not going to look at temperature. We're going to look at extreme weather. And so we're going to say that all kinds of extreme weather events are now happening that didn't used to happen in the past. So that's what the majority of the global warming community have done, is they've changed it to an extreme weather topic, a debate over things like that.
Now we have up on the screen a chart that goes to the heart of what Hansen's latest study shows, talking about how between 1950 and the 1950s and the 1980s, there was only about a 1 in 300 chance of getting the kinds of high temperatures and droughts the continental United States has been suffering from this year. And since then, it's about a 1 in 10 chance. And so his conclusion was, oh my goodness, it can't be any other reason but global warming. It can't be anything else but climate change. So what's the significance of that time period that he picked, the 50s to the 80s? Is it particularly useful to his result?
Well, it is if you're trying to show that there's an extreme increase in extreme weather, in particular heat waves, because that was a relatively quiet period. In fact, if you go back, as you were saying early in the show, if you go back into the 30s and the 20s, you would find that, in fact, there was virtually no difference with now. So he's done two things. He's cherry-picked the data. Okay, he's chosen a time period when there were not a lot of heat waves and compared it with today. Had he done the previous period, he would have shown it was about the same. In fact, shown that the 30s were a bit more. But the other thing, of course, is that there isn't enough data in the world to do this kind of an analysis. There were two periods where there was sudden jumps in global warming when they dropped out of the record a lot of the temperature sensing stations. You see, according to Hansen and his people at the GISS in New York City, NASA's station there, you are covered if you're in an area that's within 1,200 kilometers of a sensing station. Okay, so we in Ottawa, according to GISS, don't actually need any temperature thermometers or anything because there's a sensing station in, let's see, Myrtle Beach. Okay, so they're saying that if you're within 1,200 kilometers of a sensing station, then that part of the Earth is covered. So that's something people really don't realize, is that the data is very sparse. In the whole of the far north of Canada, there is one sensing station. Okay, so that's one of the most fundamental problems with James Hansen's data, is there's nowhere near enough of it. The other thing, of course, and this was discovered by Anthony Watts recently, is they are applying the wrong correction factor to account for heat sources that are near the temperature sensor. Okay, if your temperature sensor is 20 feet from an air conditioner, obviously you're going to have a higher temperature reading than really would exist if the air conditioner wasn't there. And so they've actually developed some very sophisticated methods of adjusting the temperature to account for local heat sources. Now, the most recent method of accounting for local heat sources, one that's approved by the World Meteorological Association, takes account of two things. It takes account of how far away is that heat source, and also how big is that heat source. Now, the old method of correction, the one that James Hansen is using, does not take account of how big the heat source is. So really, if you take data and you have very little of it, which is one problem, you skew some of it in the early part of the record so it looks like there's more warming, and you ignore one of the main heat source corrections, you just might have wrong data. So you obviously, no matter how you manipulate it, you're going to get wrong results.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the thing that very few people appreciate is that most of the weather stations in North America and in Western Europe were sited 70 years ago, 100 years ago, 120 years ago, and at the time they were outside of major centers.
Right.
They weren't affected by this heat island. They weren't affected by the heat radiated by the cities themselves. They weren't affected by air conditioning, exhaust vents, and things like that. But now, as the cities have built up, a lot of them are at airports. There's heat from the engines. There's heat from the tarmac. The temperature at night at an airport is much hotter than it is in the surrounding countryside because the blacktop is radiating heat. So now that Watts has made this correction, he's found that over 50% of the recorded heat rise in the past century is actually artificial. Isn't that about right?
That's right. In fact, if they want to see what really happened in the last century, they have to cut the generally accepted measurements by a half. You're right. And that's pretty serious because the United States is supposed to be the most accurate record in the whole world, okay? And so this influences the best results that came out of Berkeley a little earlier. He was not applying the correction either. So all the data
we're going to have to leave it at that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's great.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Right.